Hi there, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. Metal. Hard, big death, megadeth metal. But tonight, first of all, referencing my notes should be pretty interesting since my allergies are so bad these last 3 days that I cannot even see myself. And so referencing the notes should be kind of funny. But we are going to talk about this new little movie that I found, a little independent psychological horror movie that was, I had not heard of this until my favorite little horror queen named Miss C. She told me about this movie and pestered me for days until I bought it, because I just had to see it according to her. And she just knew that I would love it, and I did love it. I loved it very, very much. And it's unusual and very unique, very interesting, and we are going to talk all about it. And it's called Promising Young Woman. Now, Promising Young Woman was released in 2020, so it's not too old. And it stars Carey Mulligan, Burnham, and Alison Brie. There's also a couple of cool little cameos, not necessarily cameos, but small supporting parts. Alfred Molina is in it. Laverne Cox, who became famous with Orange is the New Black, she's in it. She plays Cassie's boss at the coffee shop where she works. Like I said, Alfred Molina has a few scenes as the former attorney, which we'll talk about him. And interestingly enough, a little bit of trivia, this movie was produced by Margot Robbie, Miss Harley Quinn herself, which explains a lot about this movie. If Harley Quinn produced it, Margot Robbie produced it, so that might be a little bit of trivia. So yes, I do want to thank Miss C for turning me on to this movie. I love it, and I'm very glad to have it in my collection. And so let's get to it, because this is one twisted story, okay? So we are going to definitely have fun with this, and yeah, so we better get started or we'll be here all night because of the twists and turns of this interesting story. So Carey Mulligan, as I said, plays a girl named Cassie. This was directed by Emerald Fennell, released in 2020, produced by Margot Robbie. And so yeah, Cassie is a 30-year-old, fixing to turn 30, dropout, medical school dropout who still lives with her parents. Now, the movie opens in a bar scene. It's got a pretty cool introduction. It opens in a bar, and you see this very drunk lady. This is what we learn to be as Cassie. So you see this very drunk lady, and you see these three guys talking about her. Look at her, she's all alone. I guess her friends left her wasted and, totally wrecked at a bar, and that's kind of dangerous. So that's kind of interesting in and of itself. They're talking about how that's not cool and that's kind of dangerous, yet they are also at the same talking about which one of you wants to go and get it, So, I don't know. That's kind of, that's the other side of the fence, so I really don't, know about that, but I do know that you kind of know what's going to happen. One of the guys goes over to her, plays the little game, are you okay? Are you alone? What, do you need a ride? How can I help you? So he ends up taking her in the taxi. On the way there, he ends up like going, "Oh, look, we're actually close to my apartment. Don't you want to go there and have another drink?" And so she agrees, and they go there. And she's, of course, acting very drunk. And he keeps, trying to give her some more. So she takes some more. And he starts kissing on her, and she's like, "No, no, no." And then she's like, "I really need to lay down." So he's like, "Okay." So he puts her in the bed, and he starts messing with her, and reaching up there and taking off her panties and things like that, all while she is, of course, like going, acting very drunk. "No, no, no, I'm not, I don't, oh, no, no." And then all of a sudden, this overview of the camera, like, shows her face, and all of a sudden her eyes just pop wide open, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And he just keeps going, and then she sits up and looks, between her legs down at his face, and she's like, "I said, what are you doing?" At which point he realizes she's not drunk at all, and um, the audience, of course, realizes the same thing. It's like, wait a second, she's not drunk at all. She's totally sober. She's completely wide-eyed, like looking at him like, "What are you doing?" And so you're, of course, or at least, well, I guess I should talk from my own perspective, but I, of course, expected her to, like, cut his throat or something, because it's a horror movie, but actually it's not. It's sort of like a psychological horror. So instead, you just see her the next day, or I mean, you just, yeah, see her that morning walking down the street, and she's like eating a chili dog or something, and chili or something is running all down her arm, and you don't know, what the hell is going on. What did she do? Because at first, you thought that was blood, and then when it got closer, it looks like a chili dog, maybe, or something. I don't know. So there's these construction workers across the street, like, catcalling her, and she just stops and stares at them, and they keep calling at her. But the more she stares, the more uncomfortable they get, and finally they're like, "What the fuck are you looking at?" And they get all uncomfortable and walk away, and then she smiles and walks on. And the movie actually begins at that point, where you kind of realize that was an intro. Okay. So that's that was an interesting way to start the movie. Nice little intro, and then the movie began. And so next thing, she's sitting at the dinner table with her parents, and I believe his name is Clancy Brown. Um, I'm not 100% sure about that. I could have looked, but I know him as the villain in Highlander, and he also was in a really cool episode of Enterprise, and I've seen him in a whole lot of movies. But the best one I think that people will recognize him from is the villain, the bad guy at the end of Highlander, the one that was after them through the whole movie. So he's her dad, and you're like seeing the interaction between them, which is basically, you can tell she's obviously got some kind of problems. The parents seem aware of it, and they're like, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" And she's like, "I'm cool. I'm fine." So, um, her parents are talking about her late nights, going out and stuff like that. I told you I'm gonna have trouble looking at my notes with them. I cannot see. My eyes are so blurry from the allergy. But I've been wanting to do this for several days now, so I am going to try it anyway. Um, so they show the little conversation with her and her parents, and then they show her at work, where you get to see, I was like, "Who is that?" Her boss. And then I kind of realized, well, that's the girl from Orange is the New Black, you know. And took me a while to remember her name, but I knew it was like Laverne, Laverne Cox or something from that. But she plays her boss, and you're seeing her there in the coffee shop where she works. And you're of course learning this. I mean, I could just tell you all the end, but I'm doing it from the audience perspective as we're going through the story. So you see her, now we know she works in a coffee shop, and this guy walks in, and it's a really funny scene. And he recognizes her, and his name is Ryan, and he's like, aren't you Cassandra from school? Don't you remember me? My name is Ryan. What are you doing working here? So you start going, okay, she went to medical school, and yet she's working in a coffee shop, so obviously she must have dropped out or something. So where did he go? So you're learning her backstory as the story moves along. So that is an actually really funny scene. I was like immediately taken with him because of his personality and all. So yeah, I kind of liked him, and he kind of flirts with her, and then because of the way he was talking about what are you doing working here, then he realized that was probably offensive. So he's like, oh no, I'm so sorry, you can spit in my coffee if you want to. So she spits in his coffee, and then he looks at her real strange and then asks her out. And she's like, I just spit in your coffee and you're asking me out. So there's a lot of scenes like that. The movie has a lot of really interesting WTF scenes like that. So I really liked his personality, and so he asks her out, and then after that scene, she turns him down. But after that scene, the next scene is she is with this really weird guy, like snorting cocaine, and she is acting like it was. So you kind of immediately go, okay, this is another guy she's picked up at a bar again, and she's acting all drugged out, and he is like, I think he's the weirdest one in the whole movie, because that dude is a total freak, and he keeps trying to get her to snort cocaine and have a drink, and he's snorting cocaine off a pizza box, and so she does the same thing again, except this time you get to see a little more, because when he makes his move, gets up there in her face, tries to get her to snort cocaine, he even like takes his finger and puts it, because she blows instead of snorts, and that pisses him off because she just blew his cocaine. And then so he's like doing it with his finger, and he rubs it in her mouth, and then he goes down there with his finger, and she waits till she seems to wait until they really cross the line and do something. And then she again snaps right to, and it's like, and he freaks out. He's like, what? You're not drunk? I thought you were drunk. Why does that bother you that I'm not drunk now? Why did you want to mess with me when you thought I was drunk, but now you don't want to mess with me? You know what I mean? So she has like a big little lowdown with him, discussion about, oh, I'm a nice guy. Really, you're a nice guy. Okay. Then why were you doing this? And what is my name? And all this kind of stuff. And those are pretty interesting scenes, about being taken advantage of. Now, of course, at the same time, in the back of your head, you're wondering, what is this bitch doing? I mean, she's definitely making a point, but why? You know what I mean? Is this her fetish? Is this her gig? Is this her thing? And of course, me being on the other side of the fence, I have to go, is there girls out there that do that? I mean, is that a heterosexual thing? Do people do that? Like fake being drunk to give somebody a lecture? Or let it wait till they do something and then kill them? I don't know. Because they're not really letting you know what she does to these people. All you know is like after that scene, she's opening up a book and she writes down a name and checks, like the 111 slash 111 slash. So the book is like full of it, right? I'm talking like there it looks like there's 50 names and 50 ticks. And so you're like, okay, she's been doing this a while. you know, um, that's pretty cool. I don't really understand, but I guess, we're not supposed to yet because we're learning things. Um, so after that scene, you see her doing the check in the book again, but this time they zoom in on a little photo on the wall by her mirror, and it's a picture of her and another girl, and it says Cassie and Nina on it, and you're like, okay, who's Nina? Who is this? I mean, they're not going to zoom in on the picture yet unless it means something, right? So you're like, well, who's Nina? Okay. So she goes out that next morning to her parents again at the table, and there's this big birthday gift sitting there, and they're like, and she's like, what is this? And they're like, it's a gift. And she's like, what for? And they're like, it's your birthday. You don't. And she's like, oh yeah, I forgot. And the mother sort of like freaks out. Now this is the director, I think, kind of like cluing you in that this girl has some issues, because the mother starts freaking out a little bit. It's like, I don't understand how a person can forget their birthday. What are you so consumed with and obsessed with that who forgets their own birthday? I mean, I might forget what age I am on my birthday, but I don't forget my birthday at the actual date. So you're kind of wondering, what's going on. So she forgets her own birthday, but the dad kind of interferes, and it's like, just go ahead and open up the present. So she opens up the present, and it's a suitcase. Now her mom had just got through, bitching her out about, how do you forget your birthday? What's wrong with you? You're still living at home. You don't date. You don't go nowhere. You dropped out of medical school. So that was kind of funny, because that's not exactly what you would call a subtle gift. I mean, can you imagine? If you live with your parents and they say happy birthday and they give you luggage. Yeah, not really sure that that's very subtle. What she talks about when she goes to work with her, and her boss is like, that's not really a subtle gift, is it? I mean, that's sort of a get the fuck out gift, you know what I mean? So, that was a funny scene. Like I said, this movie's got a lot of them in there, and that was cool. Yeah. So Ryan comes back after they get through talking about the birthday gift. Ryan comes back in, and he's asking her for a date again, and she finally agrees this time, and they have a really, they have a really good time. You're like, he is a really nice guy, and considering what she's doing, you can tell that she's actually having fun, and maybe thinking to herself that this guy's cool, considering what she has to work with. Of course, now she is going out and looking for it, but considering all of the trouble that she seems to find with men, finding a nice one that's being nice to her is kind of cool. So they go for a walk after the movie, and I don't really think that he meant it this way, but they end up in front of his apartment building, and he's like, oh, this is my apartment, if you want to come up. And you can almost see her heart drop a little bit, and I think he saw it too, and he was like, no, that's not what I meant. I mean, don't come up if you don't want to. We really did just the movie theater. Here's where I live. I mean, it wasn't anything. But still, she's like kind of walks away, and he apologizes, and she walks away and like kicks the hell out of a garbage can. And so you're like, okay, well, that kind of disappointed her, which, I could understand. Um, and that, um, during that date, he had asked her, did you ever see anybody that we went to school with? Now, later on, you find out that it's been about 7 years, so not quite as long as I thought it was, but that's the time frame. So it's been about 7 years since since this stuff has taken place. So she was like, no, and now he's a doctor. He's a pediatric physician, a pediatric surgeon. So he had told her, like on the date, that you were so smart, you were so good. Why did you drop out? You knew all the answers. You were great. And so he like really didn't understand why she dropped out, you know. And so you're taking all of this into your mind and trying to understand who this girl is. And she during the thing, he had also said, she's like, do you hang around anybody that we used to hang around with in school? The schoolmates. And he was like, yeah, he couldn't really get rid of him, and he still knew Al. Now, when he said Al, she like really, you could tell there was like a big change in her, and she started, her entire demeanor changed. And he said, yeah, I still know him, I still hang around with him, he's having a bachelor party, he's engaged, he's fixing to get married. And you can tell that really, that really affects her, and she ends up going and checking out. You see her that night kind of looking all over social media. She's found his social media, and that prompts her to look up some other people's social media, including one of the friends that he had mentioned to her, like, didn't you hang around Madison and this girl named Nina? Wasn't that, y'all were like the three? So she ends up going and looking up Madison's social media and ends up hooking up with her. So I think something has been brought back in her. So she ends up meeting with Madison, where she gets Madison drunk, because you're watching her ask for a big bottle of champagne and some ginger ale. And then when the waiter tries to pour it, she's like, no, 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 I'll do that. And it was because she wanted to pour the ginger ale in her glass and all the liquor in Madison's glass. Now, this used to be her friend. And so, yeah, she's drinking ginger ale and she's talking to Madison, and you learn a little bit more of the story because, or actually a major part of the story, because she starts asking Madison, what she thought about what happened back then, and why, as she explained why she had dropped out. So you're learning this as well. When she tells her that, why didn't you believe Nina? So it turns out, between this exchange, you learn that Nina was gang assaulted, and that she had committed suicide later on. That no one got in trouble for it. That she was assaulted, the R word that YouTube doesn't like. So she was assaulted, gang assaulted, by a bunch of the college guys, led by that Al dude. So now you know why she had the reaction to his name that she had, was that Al had led this assault against this Nina girl who was now dead, and she had quit school to take care of Nina after this horrible attack. So she has gotten Madison drunk now at this place, who once again talks about how she didn't, really believe it, that, people drinking, bed hopping, doing stuff like that, that it wasn't that serious. So you realize that Cassie is taking revenge on her. So she gets her completely drunk, and she has hired a guy who's sitting over there watching. And it's almost like she's giving Madison a chance to be cool, admit what happened, and apologize and say whatever Cassie wants her to say, instead of trying to cover it up, and that didn't work out for her. So you see her leave the bar and stop and talk to this guy, and it's like, because she's gotten her totally loaded, and then it's like, that's her over there, and you don't really know what she's asked this guy to do. And the guy's like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah. So she's obviously going to get him to go do something, take her up to a room and do something, but you don't know what that is. So it ends up the next day, you see her getting all these messages on her phone from Madison, and she's listening to the voicemails but refusing to answer any of them, where you hear Madison going, oh my God, I was passed out, I was so drunk, I don't know what happened. And you can tell, okay, Cassie has just set her up to be in the same position that Nina was. Was I attacked? Was I abused? And since she's refusing to tell her, this Madison woman is suffering greatly, wondering what the hell happened to her. So you're really beginning to see how devious Cassie is in all of this. That she is obviously very, very out for revenge. But unlike I Spit on Your Grave, or Vigilante, or anything like that, or, The Brave One, or Death Wish, or something, she is doing it all with these very, very devious mental things to these people. Now you have no idea what she's doing to these men, because they never tell you. So, the next thing that happens is you see her stop and start talking to these 3 teenage girls that are walking down the road, and she ends up using the lie that she is a makeup artist for this boy band. So she had done research, obviously, to get the teenage girl, to go nuts, to tell her where she's working on. She claims to be working as a makeup artist on their new video shoot. Getting this teenage girl to get in the car and go show her where this certain diner is, because that's where they're going to do the shoot. And then you see her walk into an office. It turns out it's the dean of the university. So she walks into the office and pretending to be wanting to return to school. And the dean is very nice, and and she's like, sure, why are you wanting to come back? You had such wonderful grades and all of this, and you wanting to come back. Oh yeah, And then she starts talking about, well, you know why I left, right? And she starts telling the story about, I left because of Nina, and the dean doesn't even remember her. And she tells her the story about how she was taken up to a room, too drunk to stand, and was gang assaulted. And and the dean is like, oh my gosh, did she tell anybody? What? And she actually gets like pen and paper, like, was it reported? Who, what? And she's like, yeah, it was reported. It was reported to you. And you said there wasn't enough evidence and didn't want to ruin these poor dudes' lives. And so the woman the dean is like, okay, and starts kind of trying to explain, you know, and Cassie, of course, is not having any of it. And then she finally, ends up telling her that she picked up her daughter and that she dropped her daughter off at the exact same dorm room where Nina was attacked. And this, of course, freaks the dean out. And it's like, what? you know, oh no, it's okay, right? These boys, we're not going to ruin their lives, right? You're not, she's safe. She's just with a bunch of college dudes with bottles of vodka in their room. They're not going to do nothing to her, right? Just like they didn't do anything to Nina, yeah? So the woman is freaking out. And after Cassie has made her point, her very emotional, tense point, she ends up telling the dean that, look, I was just giving you a taste. Your daughter is at this diner where I dropped her off. She's waiting for this boy band to show up. So you better give her a call. She had her phone with her too. So she gives her phone and says, you probably need to call her because otherwise she's so stupid. She calls her daughter stupid. She's like, she's so stupid she'll probably be sitting there all day. So you probably need to call her and tell her that that band isn't coming. and she leaves. So you're like, oh man, burn. This girl is like burning everybody, you know. So after this incident, I think it affected her pretty because, everyone is disappointing her. Nobody is still admitting this horrible thing. So she like has a kind of like mini breakdown in the middle of the road, and she's sitting there with her head down on the wheel, and there's, I guess, a truck, some dude in a truck getting all road ragey behind her, and gets out of his truck, goes, pulls up next to her, and rolls his window down and starts calling her all of these names, you cunt, and you this and you that, and you're, what the F are you doing, and stuff like that. And she just calmly gets out of the car, walks around to the back seat, grabs a big tire iron, and walks over there and starts busting his tailgate lights and his headlights and his windshield, and then he takes off, and you're like, wow, okay. So that scene occurred, which was pretty. This chick is definitely going somewhere mentally. So Ryan shows up at her house, and he's like, hey, we were supposed to have a date tonight. And she had totally forgot it because she is so obsessed with this thing that she forgot about the date with him. And he's kind of like, his feelings are a little hurt. And she says that she can't go, and that's because she has got to go. I mean, it's almost like a drug to her. She's got to go out and do this thing. So once again, she's at a club pretending to be drunk, and getting some guy to take her home. And when she walks out, Ryan is coming in. He's got meeting his friends there. So he is like genuinely hurt. And of course the guy that she's hanging on, all drunk when they walk out, he kind of gets freaked out because as soon as Ryan says Cassie, she's immediately totally stone cold sober. And, the guy that she was tricking, is like, WTF, man, what's up? And Ryan is genuinely hurt by this, and I felt bad for him, but you won't later on, but I felt bad for him at that moment. That was kind of, so once again, you're seeing that this girl she's just all about this. I mean, she literally can have no life due to her complete and total obsession with this injustice
that was done to her friend. So she shows up next at Alfred Molina is playing a guy named Jordan Green, and that was the lawyer that dug up dirt and convinced Nina not to press charges during the assault because from about the assault. So she has showed up and goes in and has a little talk with him. Unlike all of the others, though, this guy, he's had a nervous breakdown. He no longer works in that field in law. He had to quit due to a nervous breakdown over the suicide of Nina and his guilt of it. And he begs forgiveness, and she gives him forgiveness. And he turns out to be a good guy who is totally ashamed and destroyed by the things he had done as a lawyer and solicitor and things like this. So this is the first one that has actually made her feel better because he admits that it was wrong. He admits that she was assaulted. He admits that he dug up dirt on others as well. And the guilt from it all had driven him to nervous breakdown. So you see her leave and go outside, and there's this obvious body breaker out there. He's like, are you ready for me to go in now? And she's like, no, you don't need to go in. He's like, well, I'm still getting paid. And she's like, yes, of course. So obviously she had brought a bone breaker with her, and after she went in and gave him a piece of her mind, obviously this guy was going to come in and hurt him, but didn't have to because unlike everyone else so far, he turns out to have been repentant, very much so, about what had happened. So he turned out to be a good guy. She then visits Nina's mother comes out on the porch and sees her sitting out there, calls her over, and has a little talk with her where she basically tells her, honey, this was terrible, but you have got to move on. You have got to let all of us move on. You are the one keeping all of this alive. Now, I can understand that, but her mom was just basically, we couldn't get anything done. And that's just the way things are sometimes, the old life isn't fair thing. Now this causes a big change in Cassie, okay? She does that very thing. She deletes the accounts. She abandons her plan. She throws her little mark book in the garbage, in the bin. She stops this behavior and instead goes and apologizes to Ryan. And they begin, I guess it's probably about a 15-minute segment of the movie where they have a very, very good relationship. They're obviously falling in love. She really is moving forward, and you can tell it. And it's a very, very upbeat part of the movie. How did that happen? But it's obviously, let's see if you're watching that. Remember me laughing at that girl hitting her mic? Well, there you go. Where was I? Oh. So yeah, she is obviously moving forward. And you feel really good for her because you have seen now, for a great deal of this movie, the absolute obsessive craziness that has been going on with her and yet now she is having all of these wonderful scenes with Ryan. Their relationship's going very well because we then get to the hilarious meet the parents scene where Ryan is having dinner with her parents. Now her parents are obviously, they are thrilled to death. Yeah, because their daughter seems to be so much better. Seems to be, you know, she's got a boyfriend and she's acting happy. And not only that, but her boyfriend is a doctor and her boyfriend is nice and funny. So, it's an unusual, it sort of lets your guard down because you've seen all this stuff that's went on during the movie, and now you have this 15 minutes where the whole mood and atmosphere has changed, and it puts you off guard, just like it would have put her off guard. So, there everything is going, perfectly fine, and the next morning, she's out in the yard, and Madison shows up. I'd kind of forgotten about her, and so had you, the audience, Madison, the one she had gotten drunk at the hotel and had the guy take her up to the room, she shows up, kind of like going, I've been trying to get a hold of you. I need to know what the hell happened to me. And Cassie's like, oh, I forgot about that. I mean, she did something very horrible to her, and she had already forgot about it. So it's like, oh, I forgot about that. But nothing happened. The dude just took you. It's like, what did your friend do to me? It's like nothing. That he took you up there, he put you in bed, he watched you to make sure that you were all right, and then he left. It was just to fuck with you because of your attitude about all this. So that kind of relaxes her a little bit, but then in her own guilt, she is like, look, I saved all of my phones, and I have a phone with a video on it. They filmed that assault. Now Cassie didn't know this, but Madison tells her that they filmed the assault. The boys, his best friend Joe, had filmed the assault, and it was on the phone, and you can have the phone. Just please don't ever contact me again and leave me the hell alone. Which, I can see that after what she did to her. So, she said, if I was you, I wouldn't watch it. But here you go. You want to see it? You want the assault? And she says, and I am ashamed that back then we actually thought this was funny. I would never think anything like that's funny, but at least the girl was admitting that she's a piece of shit. And in redemption for that, here's the phone. Do with it what you want to. Personally, I wouldn't watch it, but if you want to, go ahead. Do whatever you want to with it. Just leave me the hell out of it and don't ever contact me again. So, you watch Cassie watch the assault, which had to be pretty difficult because you see that this has like literally destroyed her life the whole time for 7 years now, and she's watching that thing that caused her friend to commit suicide. And then you hear Ryan's voice, and she sees Ryan. Because, I mean, they don't show you the video, but they show you, watching her watch the video. And you can see when she hears and sees Ryan, he didn't do anything. He wasn't participating, but he was at the party and he was standing there and watched the assault. So, all of that happiness that took place that you just watched for 15, 18 minutes, 15 minutes is gone. And it did its job, which is it put you off guard. The happiness put her off guard. And like so many of us know, soon as shit starts getting better, there's something wrong. Something's gonna fuck it up. And sure enough, this guy she had fallen in love with was at the assault on video that had destroyed her life for the 7 years, and there goes that shit, yeah. So she's like, gave up. That was it. That broke her. She was destroyed. And so she goes to Ryan's office where she confronts him and tells him about the video. He kind of was like, oh my God, I was a kid, I'm so sorry, I didn't do anything, I was just there, and, I was just a bystander, innocent bystander, while you watch someone get gang assaulted, but ask for forgiveness, which she refuses, and then she threatens, if you do not tell me where Al, the assaulter, if you do not tell me where his bachelor party is, I have got this set to send to everybody in your friends list. Your parents, your job, the public, everybody. So he agrees and he tells her where Al's having the bachelor party. And she lets it all go. Because, he really didn't do anything physically. So, but she definitely squashes any of his, please forgive me, give me another chance. And he even insults her as she walks out the door. And she's like, yeah, okay, whatever. So now you're like, well, oh my God, what is she going to do now? So she decides to go to the bachelor party. And she pretends to be a stripper. She shows up at the bachelor party with a big bottle of vodka. A big bottle too. And, she's dressed like a stripper and all of that. And then she, for the first time in all these years, she gets to see Al. He's there with about, I don't know, I think it was about 8 friends. And, she goes in acting like the stripper, and Al's like, oh no, who ordered this, my fiance's gonna be so angry if she finds out. He's such a fucking geek, and not in a good way, because I like geeks, but he wasn't a geek, he was a jock, just airheaded, anyway. So she, does her little act, and she gets them all to let her pour alcohol into all of his friends' mouths. And what she had done was she had drugged it, so it was full of probably GHB is probably what was in it, because it knocked them all the fuck out. And she, got Al to go upstairs with her, where she handcuffed him to the bed, and then revealed, that she was Nina. And he immediately starts freaking out, and he's handcuffed to the bed, because he's like, what the hell are you talking about? She's dead. You can't be her. And so there is that's a very cool scene. That is a very coup de grace type scene. And she gets out a scalpel, and she is going to cut, and the speech that she gives, you have to see it, is phenomenal speech. And she's going to cut Nina's name into his stomach, because that's something that she said during the speech. all that time after you did what, your name was all over her. That's all that she had was your name, and nobody remembers her. So you should be the one with her name on you. And that's when she was going to carve it into his abdomen. And instead, he manages to get one of his hands free, and once he gets his hand free, he's only got one of them free, but that's all it took. He threw her off of him next to him, and then jumped up on her and murdered her. So, sink in for a minute. He murdered her. She's dead. Really. And you're kind of just like sitting there with your mouth hanging open going, wait. But she's the star of the... That's unusual. That's new. Okay. So, he kills her. And ugly, too. I mean, that was an uncomfortable kill scene. I noticed it as I was like watching it. 'Cause it took a good 4 minutes. And I don't think you realize how long 4 minutes... I mean, we're used to horror movies, right? We're used to slashers. It's what, 20 seconds? Even like a good strangle scene is what, 45 seconds? Neck snap, stab, axe to the face, whatever. But I noticed that this kill scene, when he puts a pillow over her face, and then he puts his knee on the pillow, basically in her trachea, in her throat. So his knee is in her throat, while he's got one free hand that he's holding the pillow down with, and he's got his knee on her face and her throat. And it's like, after about a minute and a half, I was like, this is like dragging on here. It's like uncomfortable, because in reality it's not like horror movies unless you blow someone's brains out, or unless you cut their throat or stab them. Killing someone in real life can be a long process. Strangulation takes a while, and they don't really show that in a movie, and this one did. It was a very interesting kill scene because it drug on, and she struggled, and it was uncomfortably long. It was an uncomfortably long kill scene, because you're just like, I did that again. But we talk with our hands, which can get in the way of the mics can get in the way of that. But anyway, yeah, the scene like went on, and it was a really good kill scene because it was so realistic, because of how fucking long it took to kill her. And the next morning, that retarded Joe, his best friend, walks in, and that has got to be one of the most outrageously what the fuck scenes that I have ever seen. Because when his friend comes in and doesn't believe, just the way he acted, I just wanted him dead. I wanted to kill them both. I would swear to God, I would have killed them both. They are the type of person that I hate more than anything on this planet. Is they were so, you just have to see it. But he comes in, and he tells the guy, that guy tells him, she's dead. And he's like, oh, please, what are you trying to mess with me for? And when he figures out that she's dead, he starts telling the guy that it's not his fault, that everything will be fine. And he helps him. Well, like I said, I can't explain the scene to you between them. He climbs on the bed with him and's hugging him and stuff. It'll be all right, baby, kind of thing. And it was awful. I wanted so bad for her to just pop back up and kill them both. But they take her body out and they burn it. So she's dead and burned to ashes. And the next scene shows the parents. It's been a week. The parents have filed a missing person report. The detective, is now on the case. And they go to see Ryan, and he is genuinely shocked. He knew what she was doing. She was going to go to that bachelor party. But he had no idea she was missing, because he didn't go to the bachelor party. He just knew where it was at, but he didn't want to go. He didn't go to it. So he was genuinely shocked that she was missing. Is that the next thing? Well, that it's kind of a montage after that. When he sees Ryan, you start seeing several things take place. First, you see the wedding. They're having the wedding. So Al and her, they're showing the vows. They're married. And Ryan gets the text on his phone from Cassie. How you can pre-schedule text to go out. So a pre-scheduled text appears on his phone from Cassie while he's standing there. Now the montage is showing you what's happened earlier that day. That Jordan Green, that lawyer, he gets a package, and in the package is that phone with a letter in it saying, this is the phone with that attack on it, and this is where I'm going. So when I don't come back, give this package, the phone, and this letter to the police. So she knew she could trust him to do that. So in the letter there, it said, that the exact address, that it was Al Monroe's bachelor party, and this was where the address was, and when I don't come back, when I disappear, this is where you need to send the police to look for my remains. And the boss at work, she finds a letter, and inside is one of those broken heart necklaces where it's two pieces of the heart, and one person wears it and the other person wears it, the other half of the heart. So in that is the half heart with her name on it, Cassie, and the other heart, half heart, that said Nina, was found by the cops in the remains, in the ashes by the little creek where they burnt her up. And it keeps flashing between those events and Ryan looking at his mobile, where he keeps seeing these scheduled texts pop up, and they were I got way ahead of my notes because I just watched it a while ago. But I did write down what was said, so that's why I where is it, the notes? So he keeps getting these scheduled texts, and the first one that showed up was like, you didn't think this was over yet,
did you? You know? And then you hear sirens. They showed you that montage of all the stuff that had happened that day. And they showed you the cops out at that cabin finding her remains. And then these little texts that are coming to Ryan, who is at the guy's wedding. You hear sirens in the background, and they're coming. And the last texts that pop up as the cops show up and arrest Al for murdering Cassie is enjoy the wedding. You know, enjoy the wedding. And then another one that said love Cassie/Nina, Cassie and Nina, and then a wink emoji. And that's where the movie ends. So, yeah. Now, here's the question. Did she commit suicide? I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Life of David Gale with Kevin Spacey. You know, they were these big anti-death penalty advocates. Him and this woman. So they wanted to prove that innocent people were being executed. Well, we know that can happen. So I don't really know why they think they needed to prove that, but that's the premise of that movie. And the girl that he was with and him devised this plot where he was going to be convicted and executed for her murder. However, he had nothing to do with the murder. She committed suicide and did it in a way that, with his agreement, it was both of their plans. And the reason that I bring it up is because, like I said, I have seen that in a movie before, and that is where a person intentionally does something. Now, in that movie, she did it because she was dying of cancer, so she was going to die anyway. So she arranged it to where we can set this up to where even though you didn't murder me, they will convict you of murdering me. Not because of some confession or super evidence, just a little bit. And that they will railroad you and execute you, and then all of these tapes and evidence that we had will come out, and it will be proven that you were executed and you didn't kill me. That was their plan. So I've seen it before in a movie, and that's the question about this movie. You know, based on her, I believe that she did. There are people, from what I've seen, there are people that believe that she went to Al's bachelor party with the intention of getting him to kill her so that he would finally, in other words, she thought that's all her life was worth, was to finally exact vengeance against Al. And then there are some people that's like, I think that she may thought that there was a chance. I kind of lean to the side that she knew and was going to entice. First of all, how did he get loose? But he couldn't get the other one loose, but he got one loose. And why did she scare him so bad that would make him be, force that one hand loose? They hadn't given you any indication in the rest of the movie that she had hurt people.
So, was she really going to carve Nina into his abdomen? She hadn't done anything physically violent to anyone in the whole movie. She mind fucked them. So that's my first bit of evidence. My second bit of evidence was that they showed her when she parked her car, like down the road from that cabin. She took the license plate off and threw it in the woods and put her keys up under the tire thing and put her shoes in the trunk, in the boot of the car. So, she did have that moment of happiness, and then it was destroyed too. Her whole, you see what I'm saying? The whole point was, in the first, because there's like 4 acts in this movie, not 3. So in the whole first 2 acts, she is completely has no interest. She says it many times. She wants no boyfriend. She wants no family. She wants no kids. She wants nothing. She doesn't want anything but this obsession she has of going out and getting drunk, pretending to be drunk, trapping people into bringing her back home where she can give them lectures or whatever she's doing. But she's never done anything violent that we've ever seen. And she doesn't get them put in jail or anything like that. Then you have the third act, which was just that 15 minutes where she is, okay, maybe there is life. Maybe life it can be good. And I'm in love with Ryan. And then the fourth act is when she gets that phone. She finds out he was there. No, none of this is real. Life really isn't anything. But this is the one thing that she can do. Why else did she go there? Okay, either she's going to kill him and them, or she went there to die herself to finally get him. She tried to get him, you see, and there was no way for her to get him. Him killing her and her pre-setting it up. Come on. She had pre-scheduled texts going to Ryan. I don't believe that she had pre-scheduled texts because she thought it might be needed. How the hell are you going to explain it if you weren't dead? You know? Oh yeah, what did these texts mean? Oh, I don't know. What does, you didn't think this was over, did you? What did that, if she wasn't dead, what would that text have meant to anybody? So you see what I mean? So she set it all up, and the package to the lawyer, or ex-lawyer, the necklace to her boss, the pre-scheduled texts saying enjoy the wedding, love Cassie and Nina. No, she went there with the intention of dying. She went there with the intention of getting killed. And had it all completely set up for him to kill her. And everything was set up to prove it this time. Unlike the assault on Nina, she had it all set up for when this guy kills me. You know. So yeah, I fall on the side that she sacrificed her life to exact vengeance on this assaulter. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But if you feel any different, let me know. If you saw something that I didn't, let me know. Because I believe that she went out there with the intention of dying
and had it pre-planned to get him. It's the only way she was going to get him. What else was she going to do? Go out there and cut Nina's name in his stomach? Really? That she just said that to scare him into getting violent, into breaking free, because he was a wussy. So she needed him to break free. She needed him to kill. She needed something bad to happen. You know what I mean? So I think all the evidence points to that. And that, that, ladies and gentlemen, is Promising Young Woman. Fantastic psychological thriller. If you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful indie movie produced by Margot Robbie. And there you go. Promising Young Woman. Definitely a 9 out of 10 to me. It was very new, very different. Instead of being, it's vengeance, but not done the Charles Bronson or Jodie Foster way. It's vengeance in this mind screw way and going the full measure, because if you're going to sacrifice your life to get, vengeance, then wow. And that's exactly what she did. In my opinion, that's what she did. And if she didn't do it on purpose, it still worked out as if she did. So there you go. Promising Young Woman, 2020. If you haven't seen it, you really should. Great to have it in my collection. And thank you for joining and listening to it. This is probably long because this was a weird movie to talk about. Yes, I just can't shut up. I know. I will see you in the next video, and I'm going to try to do one more tonight. It is freezing here. My allergies are killing me. Heaters are on. Oh, goodness. Love you, miss you, bye. Stay scary and keep screaming when appropriate. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.